Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Post Up with David Grubb right here on Boot Crew Media. I, of course, am your host, David Grubb. Thank you for joining me as we get ready for the Pelicans to go for their second consecutive win as they take on the Memphis Grizzlies tonight in NBA Cup action. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But what I felt like is since we are 6 games into this James Borrego era now for the Pelicans. We'll see how that goes. I think I just wanted to look back at this stage and see what's gone right with the Pelicans, what's gone wrong so far with this team. And I think I wanted to start with the positives because there have been some positives even in this tremendously bad start. And I think it starts obviously with the young players on this team, most notably your rookie class. The Pelicans have done well in recent years a couple of times in putting together these multiplayer draft classes. I mean, we saw it with the Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, Jose Alvarado class. And then you get this group led by Jeremiah Fears and Derek Queen, but also Micah Peavy, who's come on lately and played much better and earned a bigger role with this team. But then you also talk about the guys like Eve Misi and Bruce McGowan's, who has done a really good job as well and has gotten some quality minutes as of late. So, in a lot of cases, it feels like the best players on a night to night basis have been the young players on this team. Thank you, Knockout, for the greetings from Norway. Actually, what's funny is my ex-wife, her sister is married to a gentleman in Norway, and they live in Norway, and so my daughter has been there a couple of times. So shout out to Norway. Um, but yeah, the young players have done a great job this season and have adapted well to the NBA. I think the biggest things is when you look at these guys for Jeremiah Fears, it's clear he's not a point guard. He's a scoring guard. And I think in the mold of more like a guy like a Gilbert Arenas, 6'3", they're about Gilbert is 6'4", like 195, and Fears is listed at 6'3", 190. So a very similar body build. Guys who are scorers, not necessarily creators for others, but guys who need to have the basketball in their hands, who can get to the hole. And that's certainly what Fears can do. He can get to the bucket very easily. And Fears has actually shot better than we've anticipated from the outside. Gilbert, as a rookie, shot at around 36% from three, and right now Fears is shooting closer to 38% on his threes. Not taking a high volume of those shots, but he's been making the ones he's taking it. And for a kid who shot below 30% from three at the college distance, this has been a dramatic improvement in a short amount of time. So I think that's very encouraging to watch his trajectory. But what that means going forward will be, who do you match him up with in the backcourt? Because typically when you have a dominant scoring guard, you tend to pair them with a more of a passing creator in the backcourt, so you get some offensive balance. And I think what we've seen from the Pelicans and the way that the offense goes is that it's still missing that balance and that ability for the ball to move crisply. There has been some improvement, and we'll talk about those numbers in a minute. But I think overall, you see where Fears' limitation as far as running the offense impacts his play. Again, a 19-year-old rookie, I'm not going to complain about what he's doing. I'm just saying there are noticeable areas of improvement, as there should be for 99.99. I mean, well, 100% of every rookie that comes in the league has an area to improve. When you look at Derek Queen, I have to admit I was not as high on Derek Queen as some of the guys were. I felt he was talented, but I didn't see a high motor from him at Maryland, and that was my big concern: was he going to care enough on the defensive end? Was he going to be active enough on both ends of the floor? And I think what we've seen out of Derek Queen is the answer to both of those questions has been yes. Has he been always been great defensively? No, but I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago where I said Derek Queen mastered the art of playing big. He plays, and I didn't think he could play center defensively because of what we saw at Maryland. He did not move his feet particularly well. He wasn't a shot blocker, any of those things while he was in college. And so you put some of the onus on his college staff for how they used him and how they motivated him. He just didn't look like the same player as he has now. And even in a poor situation, coming to the Pelicans where you're not winning off the bat, he has played like winning matters to him. And so when you look at Derek Queen, and you see the fact that he is playing bigger than his size defensively. He's rebounded a bit better than I thought he would. And then on the offensive end, you've seen that he can be this hub of activity where the ball goes through him either in the post and he can pass out of it, or with him handling the ball on the fast break, him handling the ball in half court at the top of the key and creating for other people. He's the closest thing on this team to a point guard right now. So it's difficult again for the offense to really get into a rhythm when your best passer is your center. You've even noticed it with Zion Williamson on the court. It's Zion benefiting from Derek Queen more so than vice versa. Zion has not had a bunch of assists in the games that he's been back. He's not had a bunch of rebounds either. Derek Queen's kind of taken both of those roles. And I think that's an interesting development for the future of the franchise, because when you talked about Queen getting drafted, that there was a clear intent by the Pelicans and a recognition by the fans that if things didn't go well for Zion, that Queen could very well be the replacement for him in some regard. And I think that is coming true, and I think it's necessary at this stage. This team has embraced its rookies. It has embraced them as it has in the past, but the kids have embraced the city as well. And I think, as you see in the comments, sorry. It also helps see the city rallying around him, Fears and PV. Absolutely. They are motivated. But I think, there's nothing more motivating than what you want to do for yourself. And if you want it, you'll go out and do the best you can to get it. And I think Derek Queen wants to be as best as he can be. Jeremiah Fears said he wants to be one of the best point guards of all time. And so if that's your motivation, then you work like that every day. Then you play like that when you're in game situations. They both have a long ways to go, but that's fine. Because of the ground that they've covered so far. I think both of them have covered a tremendous amount of ground in a short amount of time. Does that mean, and in my opinion, I think it does, that you lean into building around them, including Micah Peavy, who has shown defensively he can compete at the NBA level. And then he's shown offensively that his game is starting to round out. He's going to be primarily a 3-and-D guy, but he can put the ball on the floor and he has the athleticism to finish. So if he's getting these opportunities, particularly in a second unit situation, then I think Micah Peavy can, you see some Josh Hart type qualities with Micah Peavy there. And that's an important role on a team to fill. So I think when you look at those guys and then you see the improvement that you've gotten from Carlo Makovic, though he has not played a lot of minutes due to these nagging injuries for him, but you've seen improvement there. You've seen Yves Missi coming off this 14-point, 14-rebound game. I think throughout the season, and I've said it, nobody's played harder on a night-to-night basis than Yves Missi. Every game he's played at a high level of energy, whether the results have been there or not. He's been intense. He's been active on both ends of the floor, and he's shown that he's been much more aware of what he should be doing on the offensive end of the floor. He's been more judicious in utilizing his offensive game, but he's also still shown the ability that he showed early in his rookie season of being able to move his feet well and to be able to put together some secondary offensive moves. I think it's a combination of confidence and experience that certainly will improve those skills going forward. But Yves Missi is showing that he also wants to have a future in New Orleans, and I think that's the way he's playing. Saddiq Bey has had his ups and downs, but I think overall he has been a positive for the Pelicans as far as the way that he's approached the game, the presence that he's given, and the performances that he's had. He's been, and with Zion is out, he's been the team's most consistent post presence in that regard, not having to face up, but being able to take smaller perimeter players into the basket and score in the low post area. Been able to knock down some threes on occasion and has defended and rebounded fairly well. So you have to like that part of that Washington Wizards trade. We'll talk about the other part and when we get to the what's gone wrong. I think you are starting to see Trey Murphy settle in offensively and feel more comfortable. There have been those inconsistent nights for sure, but what you have seen with Trey on a guy who's had to score 3/4 of his buckets unassisted this season. 75% of Trey's buckets have been unassisted, which is a much higher number than what it was in the past for him, because there is no point guard, because for the first 14 to 15 games of this season, ball movement was just an afterthought for the Pelicans. It was really hard for him to get easy opportunities. 75% unassisted buckets. But I think what you're seeing from Trey is somebody who's starting to figure it out. The shooting has gotten better. It has been more consistent. His rebounding has remained high. The assist numbers have started to come down as Queen has started to surge. But Trey is playing a better all-around game, as of late. We talked about Eve Misi, and I think the other part is James Borrego, at the very least, has injected life into this team. Um, it's still just a tremendous ways to go for this team to start showing and looking like it's a competent basketball team. But at the very least, they are trying harder over these past 6 games. The winning percentage has not gotten any better. You are at the same rate, winning 1 out of every 6 games at this pace. But I think Pelicans fans, by and large, would say that the team has been better since Borrego took it. Just better to watch outside of one really bad performance. They could have won that game against Dallas with a little bit better defense down the stretch. They could have played a little bit better in a couple other games and give themselves a chance. But there were those blowouts as well. But I think what you're starting to see is that there is a transition. And it's also a greater indictment of Willie Green as we move on to what's gone wrong. Because we said for a long time that the New Orleans Pelicans and with James Borrego, that they were not implementing the principles that James Borrego wanted to see offensively. The reason that Borrego was brought in to improve the offense for this team. And so when you look at that and you say, why weren't they doing these things before? Then that's a huge question mark for the Pelicans as to why they didn't do these things early in the season. And it shows, and there's been a lot of this reporting that Willie Green and James Borrego just didn't see eye to eye, and that Willie was hesitant to change the way he wanted to approach the game, and particularly in the way that his lineups were based. And we'll talk about this in just a minute about how these lineups have changed since Borrego has taken over. The point guard and center problem, though you have Jeremiah Fears and Derek Queen stepping in, they are still a problem defensively, and they are a problem as far as the roles. As we talk about guiding the offense and getting assists, the Pelicans are one of the worst assist teams in the NBA, and it's because they don't have a great point guard running the offense, and at center, it's the defensive issues that have hurt them there. I think it was last show maybe where we talked about how much guards and centers have punished the Pelicans offensively on a nightly basis, and it continues to happen. It's just really hard for them to stop the ball at the point of attack, and it's really hard for them to defend in the low post against even mediocre centers. That everybody's been able to perform well against them. And defensively as a whole, this is not a good team. And we saw that coming into the season. I don't think that's been any surprise that this has been a bad defensive team. We said before the season started that they needed to be elite offensively in order to compete. They have not been that. And a large part of that problem has been a lack of shooting. Guys have not shot the ball well. Where Jordan Poole was in before he got hurt, he was not shooting the ball well, shooting it below 35% from the field, below 33% from three. Wasn't going well for Jordan Poole. It has not gone well for Jordan Hawkins. It has not gone well at times for Jose Alvarado. It has not gone well at times for Herb Jones. So you've had these guys who you needed to shoot the ball well. Either they have not been shooting well in a huge volume, or they have not been able to take the kinds of shots that you want because of the lack of ball movement. So the threes have not been good. The shots in general, we talked about this being one of the worst 2-point shooting teams in the league, whether it's near the bucket or whether it's even in the mid-range. The Pelicans don't shoot it well from anywhere. They're okay at the free throw line, but they're not really a good shooting team from anywhere. And I've seen these comments and people are like, "Whoa, you shouldn't have got rid of Brandon Ingram." Brandon Ingram's doing the same things in Toronto that he did in New Orleans, right? He's scoring about 20 points a game, which everybody expects Brandon to score 20 to 25 points a game. Nobody ever said he couldn't score, but he's shooting 29% from three. He's not helping the Pelicans in that case. He's not making it any easier because the same problems would persist. The ball's not moving. The ball's not creating easy shots. So nobody's going to get easy shots. Brandon Ingram shots wouldn't be any easier in New Orleans this year if he were here. So I think, people who are still focused on those things, I'm like, you're making a mistake here. You're thinking about the wrong things. Just think about what you do have and what is going on. And so the other part of it, the Kevon Looney, he's not shooting more threes this year. He shot more threes. Brandon Ingram shot more threes last year for New Orleans than he's shooting this year in Toronto. You can go look that up. That's pretty easy to see. Moneybag Q Swiper. Go look that up. He's shooting fewer threes and he's shooting below 30% from 3-point range. So I don't know what you're talking about there. But anyway, Kevon Looney, the other part of the free agents acquisitions, and I said that he was the best the Pelicans could afford at that stage because they missed out on all the other centers. But absolutely, Kevon Looney has been a disappointment this season. So those are the negatives so far for the Pelicans. But here's been some things that have developed since James Borrego has taken over, and I want to talk about these. So for the season, your best five-man lineup, and this is only 19 five-man lineups have been played 10 or more minutes for the Pelicans because there have been so many different lineups. But the best of the group has been a group that makes a lot of sense. Zion, Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, Eve Messi, and Jeremiah Fears. They've only played 34 minutes together, which for a group of starters is probably, that's the equivalent of maybe a game and a half's worth of minutes. But in that time, they have an offensive rating of 119.4 and a defensive rating of 100. If that offensive rating applied for the entire 48 minutes, that would put them fifth in the league. That defensive rating would put them first in the NBA. So you do have some combinations that have worked. We'll see as the health improves for this team if they get an opportunity to play together. Your worst lineup, again, I don't think there's any surprise there. Kevon Looney, Jordan Poole, Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, and Jeremiah Fears. And we saw that group early in the season, and it did not work together for a number of reasons. But under James Borrego, I've already said 34 minutes is not a big sample size. I just said that. Y'all got to listen. I'm not saying this. I said there are some things that work. Like, what are we doing? Let's not parse the minutes. And please, let's listen to what I'm saying. Okay, so under Borrego, your best groups, again, not many, only 4 of those groups. I just said it a minute ago. If you'd listen, so don't come at me with win. You cannot listen. 4 lineups with 10 or more minutes. Only one of those has been a net positive. And that lineup was Trey Murphy, Jose Alvarado, Carlo Makovich, Jordan Hawkins, and Derek Queen. That group, not great offensively, 106.7 total. 106.7 total. Defensive rating, 31.3. Again, these are very small. This is only in the 6 games that Borrego has coached. So that net rating of 75.4 is not going to last. But the group that has gotten the most minutes that has been a positive has been the group of Sadiq Bey, Trey Murphy, Jeremiah Fears, Derek Queen, and Micah Peavy. Again, not a great offensive group, only a 100 offensive rating, but a 96 defensive rating. So you're seeing the rookies are improving defensively. You see Derek Queen, Jeremiah Fears, and Micah Peavy in a 5-man group with Sadiq Bey, who we know is a constant defender. And you got Trey Murphy, who we have said his length and athleticism makes him a quality defender at times. But the improvement there, when you put Peavy alongside Jeremiah Fears, you see the difference, right? Because you've put a defensive first player and it allows Fears to do what he does. He is not going to be an attacking defender, but he can be an opportunistic defender. So when you see what they're trying to do, we have not seen a lot of Zion, obviously, because he started this tenure injured and has only played in a couple of games. But we'll see how he fits into this group. But I think what you are seeing is that the bigs have come along a lot more than we thought they did. You're seeing good minutes from Makovich. You're seeing good minutes from Messi. You're seeing good minutes from Queen. Messi, the best defender of the group. Makovich and Queen, obviously the best offensive players of that group. But you're starting to turn into this 3-man rotation at center if they can all stay healthy. The DeAndre Jordan thing is now fine with him as a mentor, but I think what you're looking at is offloading Kevon Looney as early as you can. His contract is still attractive to somebody. If there's a team looking for a veteran post presence that maybe could boost them, he's only getting paid $9 million. He has a team option for next season, so you don't have to keep him if he's not performing well. But I think if the Pelicans want to secure more minutes for Messi, Makovich, and Queen, then it's time to move on from Kevon Looney and go ahead. So I think that's probably the best benefit for the Pelicans. When you look at these last 6 games, there has been some notable improvement. There has been noticeable improvement. The offensive rating is up 2.3 points from 108.1 to 110.4. That's improvement in 6 games. The defensive rating has dropped by 3 points from 121 to 118. The net rating has improved from a minus 12.7 to a minus 7.5. That is a dramatic improvement of almost 6 points. The pace has really improved from a 99.5 to a 104.17. The effective field goal percentage is up a point, and your true shooting percentage is up more than a point. So The thing that you've seen out of Borrego is that the pace has picked up and the offense is getting a little bit better, but you still don't have enough shooting with this lineup. You need to find more guys who can shoot the basketball, particularly guys who can catch and shoot because the basketball is not moving. Like you're going to get a lot of hand grenades in this offense. I do not have the plus minus for without Z or Queen on the court because they just haven't played a lot of minutes together. Um, it is noticeable that when Queen goes off the floor right now, and it's the same with Zion, when both of them go off the floor, there are dramatic impacts to both ends of the floor because they do multiple things. Defenses have to pay attention to both those guys. And that's why I said earlier that, the general consensus amongst fans and pundits was you were taking Derek Queen as a potential Zion Williamson replacement. And I think after what we've seen so far, it only makes sense that that happens. I don't know what Derek Queen's ceiling is, but I know he's available and I know he's doing the things that you need at 6'10" that make him a really unique presence. When the Joker gives his seal of approval, I'm not going to argue with that. I'm not going to argue with Nikola Jokic when he says that this guy reminds me of me. And I think that one of the things I do like about Derek Queen, which has been something that has not happened in the NBA currently, what we have not seen currently is players with a unique style. And Derek Queen has a unique style of play. It's not normal. It's herky jerky. But it is skilled. He has a soft touch shooting the basketball. He has great hands. He has great feet. Like it is a style of play that, unique players come into the NBA. And I think that that's great. So to me, Derek Queen gives you something that's not only unique in that his skill set, but the way he applies his skill set is unique. Man, I think that that's an advantage for the Pelicans. But as you look forward to what this team could be, I think that the best thing is to move on from Zion Williamson and start recouping some of these players. And you say, why do we have to trade Zion? I think the reason you have to trade Zion is because your timelines. It's the thing we've talked about so many times. What does your timeline look like? And now you are on a completely different timeline with these two young players because if you're going to play a 19-year-old and a 20-year-old 30 plus minutes a night, you're not going to win a lot of games. So what are you keeping Zion Williamson for years 7, 8, 9? If I'm not going to win games this year, next year at the very least, and Zion's up for a contract after year 3. This is what we talked about. This year was about making the decision. You did everything that you could to clear the decks for Zion. You got rid of Brandon Ingram. You gave Zion the basketball and the responsibility, and you said, go out there and prove that you can live up to it. You didn't prejudge it. You said, what are you going to do with it? He hasn't taken care of the responsibility. He has not been available enough, and then when he has been available, he has not been the player that we expected him to be. He is still impacting the game in a positive way, but he is not dominant. He has not had a dominant performance in any of the games he's played in this season. He's had some good games, but he's not had a dominant performance. So when you've done this, and yes, especially when you traded the first to move up for Queen, you have to start getting these assets back. And so, Zion, to me, though his value is not at its highest because he's missed these games, he's still, I think, ultimately, whether it's during this season, he's got to, at the end of the season, he's got to go. Willie's not in the building anymore. Willie's not in the building anymore. And Zion missing games, if he missed games because Willie was coaching, then I don't want that guy either. If you sat down because Willie Green was coaching, then you abandoned your teammates. If you didn't play well this season, it wasn't Willie Green that made Zion not play well this season. I'm not going to put that on him. And I think that we know what Zion's level of talent is, but you are building something different now. And you are going to lose this year. You're not going to win 40 games this year. You're not going to win 45 games next year, not with this many young players in your top of your rotation. It's just not how it goes. So why would you pay Zion Williamson $40 million? Why would you pay him $40 million to be a mediocre team? It just doesn't make sense financially. So all these guys, it's not just Zion. DeJounte Murray's got to go. Jordan Poole has to go. because of the 1 million you're paying him this year, and then you may have to pay him next year. None of these guys fit anymore. It is not about them as players. It's not about indicting them as individuals. Though I think with DeJounte Murray, you just say that he had nothing as good of that came of that. But what I'm saying is, you've got to think about what is your future, and your future is not now. Like, it is not. You're not winning now. You're not winning next year. So what are you building for? I don't want to make the same mistake with Fears and Queen. If I don't want to make the same mistake with them that I made with Zion and with Trey and with Herb, because these guys are going into year 5, year 6, year 7 of their careers, and they've never experienced any kind of real winning, and they've never had a culture that was going to produce real winning. So if I get that into the situation where I'm doing that again with Fears and Queen and with Peavy and with Misi and with Makovich and all these guys, and I still have opportunities to flesh this roster out with some role-playing veterans. This is why you can keep Sadiq Bey, because he's not expensive and he fulfills a role for you. As a veteran, as a defender, as a shooter, as a passer, all those things, he fills a role for you, and he's inexpensive in doing it. And these are the kind of veterans you're going to need while you develop your young players and bring in some more. Joe Dumars can say that he didn't care about wins and losses, but he cared about you. He can't say that once he made the Derek Queen trade. The wins and losses absolutely mattered. And you could say you're only looking. You can't give away seasons like that. You can't say that. You can't give away the season. He talking about an identity. You can't even establish the identity this year. And this is the issue and why you can't establish identity. Bringing Borrego in, you now have 2 agendas. You have 2 agendas with Borrego, because Borrego is trying to keep that job, which means he wants to win games. Okay? So the only options here are either Joe Dumars explicitly tells James Borrego, it's okay not to win. It's okay not to win, which I don't think is the case for Borrego, who thinks he can lose games. Okay? So the other option is Borrego competes on his own, even though the organization is like, this year's a punt, because you can't establish culture. See, this is the thing. You can't establish culture and identity if your coach is going to be different next year. So either the choice has already been made and Borrego will be the coach next year. And if that's the case, you still have to redo this roster to make it the kind of roster that will succeed playing his style of play. And if he's not the coach, you're restarting the culture all over again next year, because he's not going back to being the lead assistant. He's not doing that. Not for this team. So how can you establish culture? Bro, I swear y'all don't listen to anything. How many rookies can play? I said Queen is giving effort on defense. I said all rookies play bad defense. He's got to get better. Like, do y'all listen to stuff? This is so frustrating, because everybody wants to come in, heard one thing, and then make a comment. Listen to the show, ask a question, but don't be a smartass. I'm starting to get tired of that. I'm polite, I'm nice, but I'm starting to get tired of this shit where y'all come on and don't listen to what I'm saying and then try to make me feel like I'm wrong. I'm not doing that. When I'm wrong, I'm gonna say I'm wrong. But I'm not gonna do this stuff where y'all come at me and do it. Like, I'm not doing that anymore. We're not doing that anymore. We're not doing that anymore. Go somewhere else with that shit. All right. So where was I? Talk about the defense and just how you have this youth situation. You have 2 different timelines, and we talked about that before the season. I should have been a principal. We talked about this before the season. You can't operate on 2 timelines. The Pelicans have done that before. Now, one of the trades that I have seen, and I thought this was interesting. I really did think this was interesting, because Bill Simmons put out a trade for the Pelicans, and was talking about that the Pistons and the Pelicans could be great trade partners. And obviously there's some Detroit and New Orleans connections with Trajan Langdon and Joe Dumars and Troy Weaver and other stuff. But one of the players is somebody that the Pelicans have been thinking about. And it's a guy, Jaden Ivey. And Jaden Ivey, the deal would be Jaden Ivey, Ron Holland, who was taken 5th in the draft, and then 2 first-rounders, one in 2027 and one in 2029. I think that's a deal that I would consider. I don't know if I'm pulling the trigger on that dude. I don't mean all y'all. 95%, 97% of y'all are great. I'm sorry, Grimesy. I don't want to throw you in that thing. But it's just, y'all know how it gets, man. Y'all know how it gets. This stuff it gets annoying. We can have differences, but you know what I'm saying? Like let's just chill on the attitude and stuff. You know what I'm saying? I don't do this to come in here for attitude. Um, but I think it's an interesting trade idea that all you'd have to give up is trade Trey Murphy, and you get back Jaden Ivey. And again, Jaden Ivey, the reason that you're getting him back is because he only has a 1 year contract. So if Jaden Ivey, who has been injured a lot in the last few seasons, if you're taking him in, you're getting rid of that deal at the end of the season, and you're getting cap relief there. Ron Holland is on his rookie deal, so not very expensive. Okay, not very expensive there. And then you would get a 27 and a 29 first rounder. So getting those two first rounders, you know, for a team that's going to need additional talent and is going to have to, again, get off of some of these bad contracts. Getting those first rounders back helps you unload the DeJounte contract, helps you unload the Jordan Poole contract, helps you unload any of these other bad deal, even the Zion contract. If you got to give up a one to get rid of Zion at some point to get another one back. Saying like the more ones you have, the better it is. Because you look at Oklahoma City now, Oklahoma City could have 4 more first rounders this year. Like this is insane the amount of picks that they've assembled. And yeah, it started with 5 first rounders for Shea. It started with that, but what did they keep doing? They took on the Gordon Hayward deal to get another couple of picks. They took on more bad deals to get a couple of picks. So if you keep doing that to get rid of these bad players, you take on these expiring deals. I'm not saying trade Trey before Zion. I'm saying this deal is on the table. That's all I'm saying. But I think this is absolutely a selling situation. This is a selling situation. If you find a player that you identify as a young player, sure. But I think what Joe Dumars has decided that Queen and Fears are his tandem. So what you're doing around Queen and Fears is building players to complement them. So I think in this season, you are in the business of getting rid of players. You're not in the business of acquiring players. You're in the business of acquiring picks. And you want to find out when the best deals are. Now, the benefit of keeping Trey through the rest of the season is Trey plays really well with Fears and Queen. Trey gives you the one thing that you have to have on this court, and that's shooting. Nobody else on this team is going to shoot the ball as well as Trey. So that's the case to keep him through the season, is that at least the basketball will be palatable because you're getting a shooter. Okay. But if you're giving up Trey now and you get Ron Holland, a top 5 pick, 2 first rounders, and Jaden Ivey, then I think you're getting a good deal. If that deal is still available at the end of the season, I think is not everybody. I don't think you reset everybody. Like I said, you have some young players. Misi is a talent that you can hold on to, and I think that Misi and Queen can play together, because if Queen is up top offensively, then having another 7-footer in that dump off area, I think is really good. So I think those two guys can play together. I think again, Carlo is cheap and athletic. You have a decent big man rotation already of young players. You still have Peavy. So you have young players to start with. It's just offloading these really expensive veterans who are not going to help you win. Because even like, what would the best case scenario be right now? Even if Poole was healthy, Fears ain't playing. Okay, so you wouldn't have found out what Fears could do if Poole was healthy, because Poole would be playing 34 plus minutes every night. So that wouldn't be great. If DeJounte was, yeah, I get you, my dog. My bad. Yeah, trade that era needs to end. But when you look at the rest of these guys, the rookies wouldn't have gotten their playing time if everybody had been healthy, right? You wouldn't have gotten that same amount of playing time. So once you've discovered now that you can survive without DeJounte, that you can survive without Jordan Poole, that you can survive without these guys, and it is not an indictment of their level of talent. It's about where the Pelicans are now. What are you? And I think there is the case to keep Trey, as if, okay, if you can get rid of the rest of the junk, then Trey becomes a piece that you can keep. If you can get something back for DeJounte, if you can get something back for these guys, then yeah, then absolutely. And I just said Queen that Zion benefits from playing with Queen. I said that too. So I don't know what you're talking about. But yeah, I think that it's time to move on because you cannot have $120 million, which is essentially what the Pelicans have, not living up to its perfect potential in Zion, Poole, DeJounte. Like, just you start taking those guys, and they're not going to get you to where you want to be. They're not getting you to where you want to be. So if the goal is to be, and this is the problem too, when you talk about ownership, and we've talked about it the last couple of weeks with ownership, if the desire is not truly to win, at the very least, you hope that Gale doesn't want to keep spending bad money. So you can't have all these guys sitting on the sidelines and you're spending this kind of money to finish in the lower half of the Western Conference year after year. And even again, the 49-win team finished 8th. I don't think it has to take a long time to be good. I don't think it does, because you've seen other teams do it when they've made the commitment. For every Charlotte that's in the same boat as the Pelicans, for every Charlotte, you see teams like Portland turn it around relatively quickly. You know, they feel excited, and they don't even have Dame Lillard, who's coming back next year. But they seem excited about what they have. It didn't take Denver to turn long to become a good team. It didn't take the Knicks, once they figured out what they wanted, to turn it around after 20-something years of being bad. When you find your guys, and it appears that the Pelicans have in Fears and Queen, it appears that they have. Again, it's not a certainty, but it appears that they found their guys. You build around those guys, and you can't have 5 guys unless you make it burgers, right? Zion can't be the guy. Trey can't be the guy. Poole can't be the guy. Fears can't be the, and Queen. All those cannot be the guy. You got to decide who you're building around. And it feels like it's either Fears or Queen. And if you're building around either right now, if they're going to be your next Karl Malone and John Stockton, if they're going to be your next Gary Payton and Sean Kemp, if they're going to be the next Tony Parker and Tim Duncan, whatever that's going to be, then you find the guys that fit with them. And your veterans are not stars. If you're getting guys over 29 years old, 30 years old, you aren't looking for stars. You're just looking for role players in the veterans situation to be the instructors, to teach your guys how to be professionals, to fill the roles that your young players don't fill, either offensively or deep. Look at the Rockets. What did they do? They got all the young athletic rookies, the Jabaris, the Thompsons, all these guys. And then they went and got selective veterans to fill in the spots where they didn't have talent. They needed a point guard, they go get Fred VanVleet. They needed defensive toughness, they added Brooks. And then they moved those guys. They needed rebounding, they brought in Steven Adams. Off the bench. Remember, all these guys are bench. None of these veterans are starting except for VanVleet before he got hurt. And Brooks was starting as well, excuse me. But now those guys, Brooks is gone. VanVleet is still there. They go out and get what they think is the finishing piece in Kevin Durant. But hey, you got to admit to failure at some point. Like, you can, it's just like having an addiction or any other problem. You can't get better till you admit you got a problem. And the era just hasn't worked. And it doesn't matter why. It's like any relationship, right? At the end of the day, no one cares why you broke up. All you know, things wouldn't, if things didn't end badly, they wouldn't end. And that's just how it goes. That's just how it goes. I mean, look, nobody was more of a proponent of giving Zion another chance than me. I said, with that kind of talent, you give it all the chances that you can. But this year has shown now, and because of the development of these young players, is that you can't wait anymore. 7 years, man. 7 years. You gave it everything you had. New Orleans is committed. New Orleans gave Zion everything he could as far as the love. That's right, man. You can't be saying you left a toxic relationship. Even if y'all love each other, sometimes it just don't work. And that's where the Pelicans are. It doesn't work. So as we look to tonight, this is a game that if you're the Pelicans, it feels like you can steal this one, right? And the big thing is, number one, Ja Morant ain't playing. So you take that right there. John Morant, who has killed the Pelicans over and over again, he's out. So it's time for, I think this is the time for the Pelicans to snap that losing streak to the Grizzlies, with Josh sidelined, with no Scottie Pippen, with no Ty Jerome. The biggest problem for the Pelicans has likely been eliminated in, not being able to stop guys to get to the bucket. Toronto does not, Memphis does not have enough guys who can drive to the basket, I think, to really create a problem for the Pelicans. This is going to be very similar to the Bulls game. And I think you're looking, can the Pelicans get somebody going early on? And I think what you saw with Borrego making that adjustment last game, and when people talk about not winning, not wanting to win, Borrego clearly wanted to win last game because he put Queen and Fears on the bench because they weren't being effective. And I think he certainly wants to develop those guys, but he wants to win games too. You can't get a job if you keep losing games. He's got to show he can win. So when you look at this, you go to what tonight is going to be. Yeah, JJJ did a great job protecting the rim last time, but he fouled out. Now, the front court is going to be better for the Grizzlies. They're going to have more of their guys available to them in the front court than they did the first time they played. But Ja is the only one that's been the one that the Pelicans can't stop. They've had games where they can control Triple J, especially when his shot is not going down from distance. But it doesn't matter whether Ja Morant was making threes or not. He's putting up 30 on the Pelicans and hitting game-winning shots. So if it gets to be a close game and you're in the final minutes, that is a huge relief if you're the New Orleans Pelicans, knowing that Ja Morant is not going to be able to be there to take that shot. The big thing for the Pelicans is just like it is every night. Every night. Stop turning the ball over. Get back on defense and take good shots. If they do those things, they give themselves a chance. They're going to be outmatched most nights against the really good teams. But against teams below 500, they're 2-2 this season. So they've got to at least be competitive in the games against bad teams or mediocre teams. This is a big game for the Pelicans. It's a cup game. They're already 0-2 in the cup. You just don't want to go 0-4. But I think that you absolutely, at this stage, this is a game that the Pelicans need to win. They need it for their confidence. They need it for Borrego's continued commitment to what he wants to do with this team. I think psychologically, the city needs it. The fan base needs it. Everybody would like to, especially because it's Memphis. It's a division game and it's a cup game. So and it's right before the holiday. So I think that the crowd will be passionate. I think people want to see a win. I think this is a great chance for the Pelicans to get a win. The only times I've called wins, I felt like they could win that back-to-back. I mean, that the back end of that game against, I think the Hornets was one I thought they could win, and then I think that this win. I was wrong about the Bulls. I thought that they would lose to the Bulls. I thought that was a game because the Bulls run the ball. Run with the basketball to get out in transition. But the Pelicans did a good job of not allowing the Bulls to get going. But I think this is one that they got to win. There aren't going to be a lot of games the rest of this month, in particular, that they have a chance to win. Zion is playing tonight. But overall, what evidence now? And again, I say that as somebody who has defended Zion and said give him opportunities. What evidence now do you have that even if you find out, we know their lineups are going to be better with him in it? That's not a question anymore. We always know the lineups are going to be better when he's on the floor. You always know they're going to perform better as a team when he's on the floor. But if I can't count on you in all the ways, not just being on court is number one, but I can't count on you in all the ways that it takes to be a leader, then I just think it's time to move on. The young guys are ready to assume those responsibilities as far as the mental part of it. They may not be ready on the court yet, but it seems like Query and Fears are fine if you tell them this is your team. And if those guys want it, and Zion doesn't, if Zion just wants to be one of the guys, he can go be one of the guys somewhere else. Because the Pelicans don't need one of the guys. They need the guy. You don't win without the guy. And Zion is playing like one of the guys right now. Exactly. 1 rebound, 2 assists. That's not enough. It's not enough. That's not enough. All right, y'all. We done 45 minutes. I appreciate y'all. There was a couple of questions that I want to hit real quick. Do you believe Pelicans get in the draft? And who do you think we should get? What players would fit with Derek? I think that they will get back into the draft somehow. The draft is too good next year to not get into it. I think there are teams that have too many picks, like Oklahoma City. I don't think they want to take 4 more picks. They might likely would want to move some of those to keep their contracts down. But I have no idea at this stage who would fit with Derek Queen and Jeremiah Fears yet. It depends on what this roster is looking like and who's gone. But I think the positions of need for the Pelicans haven't changed. If you're going to keep Fears in the backcourt, you need a legitimate passer to handle the basketball and allow Fears to be a scorer, somebody who can complement Derek Queen in that regard, somebody who can be a pick and roll player and handle the basketball. And I think you always need shooting. So if you get those things, I think that's what you're looking for in the draft is athletic players who can shoot and someone who can handle the ball. The other question, do I think Jordan Poole has any chance? No, no. And it's not anybody's fault. But I think that because the way the season is gone, the fact the Pelicans will not make the playoffs, you cannot afford to keep Poole next year at $31 million. Because again, you're going to be most likely a team chasing the play-in. So if you're chasing the play-in, you can't be having these $31 million guys. That just doesn't make sense, right? Because you look at teams like Utah, which has turned a little bit around themselves this year. You look at these teams, you're not going to get good. You're not going to get good by overpaying for veterans who are on the bad side of 30. Okay, and all these guys are getting to 30 and making money that does not correlate to the kinds of contributions they're going to give to this team. Yeah, I wish you had a Con Knipple. Yeah, that'd be great to have Con Knipple. Who's playing outstanding for Charlotte. Sion James playing well for Charlotte too, and I thought Sion would have been a good choice, but you got Micah Peavy, and I'm not going to complain about that too. Again, I was wrong about Micah Peavy. I'll say that too. I thought Micah Peavy was a stretch to get him, but he's shown that he was worthy of that pick. So I think, yeah, when you Fears, absolutely, it's more of Jamal Murray, Gilbert Arenas, like that style of player. Like it's that style. It's not point guard. It's not handle the rock. So what do you see? Jamal Murray has to play with people who can handle the basketball, whether it was Monty Morris when they were doing well, or whether it's with Christian Braun or whatever. There's always somebody to play alongside those types of guards who can handle the basketball. They do it in Memphis. They put Scottie Pippen Jr. alongside John Morant to handle the basketball. So I think that, yeah, I think it's if you're going to play that system, if you're going to play that, then if you look at them in the Nuggets, let's do that. If you want, the comparison has been there. So let's do that real quick and look at the lineup that the Nuggets have put together, right? So if you say, just take the starting 5 and you say, well, what works there? Murray, and then at the second position, the Pelicans don't have that dependable point guard to play alongside their Jamal Murray type. You got the Jokic Queen thing. Then you're putting Trey Murphy in the role of a Michael Porter Jr. But I think Trey Murphy is a better player overall than a Michael Porter Jr. as far as like the overall skill set. But so I think you've got that equivalent. The 4 spot, the Aaron Gordon spot, you don't have that guy. You know what I mean? Like an elite post defender who can also shoot it on the perimeter and handle the basketball. That should be your Zion Williamson, but it's just not. And he's not a good enough rebounder. He's not a good enough defender for you. Zion is much more of a 1-2-3 defender rather than a 4-5 defender. So, and then you look at the bench, the best benches that Denver had when and they had a great bench when they won the championship. It had a lot of those Bruce Brown, who was at his peak then and is back with them doing the same type of role. There's your Micah Peavy type, right? Micah is very much like a Bruce Brown. So I think you see these things that there's a path to being good. There's a path to being good, and it doesn't have to take 10 years to get there. The Pelicans, yeah, I think I don't know if you're the winners, but the Pelicans are certainly winners in this year's draft. Yes. You got what you wanted. You got the 2 players you wanted. And you take the cost out for next year. Next year, we'll decide if they're winners or losers then. But for this draft, yeah, you got the players you wanted. They are playing better than you expected. And they are not only playing better than expected, they are being difference makers against veterans in this league. So I think for the Pelicans, the draft itself, the players you got are a win. That's a win. But organizationally, how are you setting the culture? And again, I asked that question about James Borrego. If James Borrego is the coach If James Borrego is the coach next year, then that decision's already been made. And if that's the case, then you have a chance to build culture. But if James Borrego, the decision remains in the air, if there will be a new coach next year, most likely, if that's the case, then you're resetting on some culture. Okay. Then, uh, well, here's the problem. It's not just the Hawks now, it's that Pacers pick too. Because the Pacers are going to finish bottom five in the NBA, it looks like. So you have the Pacers and that Hawks pick both being in the top five. But I think the big thing for this team is the decision has been made. Zion Williamson made it for you. Time to move on. All right, y'all. I appreciate y'all for checking in. You know how to find me at DM Grub on social media. And until the next time, this has been the Post Up. This has been Boot Crew Media. Y'all enjoy the game tonight. And make sure you check out Propels Talk after the game as well. Have a great Thanksgiving. Um, and oh, a couple of quick questions before we go. Do I think it's time for a rebrand? Rebrand. Either go with the skeleton and still be the Pelicans, but go with the skeleton as the main logo and try something that's a little bit more New Orleans feeling, or rebrand and try a different color scheme. The red, blue, gold, it doesn't work anymore. Protections, we ain't got no protections. We ain't got no protections. We're going raw dog on these picks. All right. That'll do it, y'all. Enjoy the game tonight. I hope it goes well. Hope the Pelicans pull out a win. Until the next time, this has been the Post Up. I'm David Grubb. Happy Thanksgiving to you.